Καλησπέρα σας. Σήμερα στο πρόγραμμα του Wonderful Chaos έχουμε τον Andy Shalev και τον Πάμπος Δημητρίου και έχουμε την Aine Naumburg στο show μας.
And where is that happening, Bambos?
Στο Wonderful Chaos, Andy Shalev.
Oh my, that goes down in the record books for one of the best intros to the show. I still have no idea what you said, but it was perfect. That I can. So
like, is there any moment on the show where we know what we're saying?
No, obviously not. But little did I know you were going to come up with a Greek or whatever the hell you were speaking. You know, I'd never heard you speak your mother tongue until just now.
Really?
No, I've never heard you speak it. So it was sort of funny to hear
I invited you about 13 times to come to my country.
I know.
And then I will speak Greek all the time.
I know, but I have a limit on like going to developing countries. Like I know the dangers in traveling to places like that. So I try to go with a lot of caution.
You lost me. You go to the America.
I'm criticizing Cyprus. That's a joke. Jesus.
You're not funny. You're chubby.
I know. I'm working it down. Okay.
So good afternoon.
We've got Aine Naumburg.
And she's been asking a very important question.
Why? Since she was 13, scratching into her desk, why? And I met, you're going to love this story. Well, you know what the funny thing is? I met Elka, but like a week ago, she changed her name to Anya. So now I'm like, who the hell are you? And what did you do to Elka? So Anya, she basically, I meet her on the trip when I'm in the hot springs in Colorado. Remember in the story in the book when I'm looking up at the stars?
Which book?
In The Wounded Healer, when I'm looking up at the stars and contemplating radical self-love, and I write all of those things that I realized, well, she was there at that moment. And she was in this kind of weird hippie commune-like place that I went into, and people playing the piano and singing, some very talented, others not. But it was really a beautiful, sweet environment. And we had a very, very short talk, not close, not intimate, just sort of nice enough to see one another. And then I left my book behind. And then she read the book, and then we kept contact from that moment. And then in some weird way, since I write so intimately in the book, I could see that whenever I spoke with Anya, I felt very connected to her because I knew that she saw me. So there was this deep love and affection that just stayed there. And I've just been really grateful for her in my life because in a way, you know, when you write, it's a vulnerable act. And then someone reads it, and you know, if they read it and they see you, they know you in a way that some of the closest people to you don't even know you. So when I talk to Anya, I always laugh because I feel like she really sees me. Like I really am grateful to her, even if we have such little contact, because I know there's like a scene in her that's like, oh, I know what Andy's all about.
That's really beautiful to hear.
Yeah. And
there's a lot of spaciousness in what you said.
Yeah. And imagine not knowing her that well. And then from that moment, finding this, like just a loving appreciation of one another. We've spoken every kind of 6 months or so and just checking in and how are you? And it's just been really beautiful.
So it's another 6-month relationship.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And as I said earlier, I don't know Anya in the biblical sense. So Bambos, stay clear of that. But I do know her in the most loving sense.
Let's slow it down. That's you're talking about, not me. I don't go there. You go there. There's a danger that when Andy starts to project himself onto me, then I know like, oh, I'm reaching his level.
I don't know what that means, by the way.
I don't know either.
Okay, that's good. I'm just thinking if I can tease you on any level, I get great joy from that, as you can see.
Oh, tease away, please.
Yeah.
Why?
And I talked to her when I was in Los Angeles, and on the call, I just said, I'd love to do a show with you. What are things we might want to discuss? And then as we talked, she says, I don't know, Andy. I've been asking why ever since I was 13 years old. And then when she said that sentence, my entire body vibrated. And I said, wow, that's insane. That's the show. And from there, last week, I said, I wrote this down and I had this magical moment. What the hell is the show about? And she said, I don't know either, but that's where we are. So
Good. I like that she changed her name.
Oh, I know.
Like,
what makes that?
Actually, it was a discovery that I had on our show that sometimes, and I'm not, she can correct me when she comes up, but in a way, it's like saying goodbye to an old part of yourself.
Yeah.
And inviting something new in. So
yeah, I told you I want to do a whole show on that topic because for me, I sometimes in my past judged people that changed their names.
Me too.
And now I realize that I wish I could change my name because I don't even recognize myself as Andy anymore.
What should we call you, Frank?
I don't know.
Buddy?
You know what's funny, Ronnie? I was really funny moment yesterday. Was I was with you when this happened. It was Ronnie, her nieces call her Bude, and they call me Uncle Andy. And I realized, I said, no, I don't want to be. If you're Bude, I want to be Buddha. Ronnie didn't reply to that.
So anyone watching this show for the first time, yes, this is Buddha.
Oh, yes, this is Buddha. Hey.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you guys for putting this show on. It's pretty fun and interesting to watch you guys.
Yeah.
Who do you like more, me or him?
We're not going there.
No. Who would you rather sleep with, me or him?
Oh my God.
You just answered the question. It's done. It's over.
First of all, I just want to let you know I love you. And actually, when I do things in my life, it's people like you. When I have these sort of connections that I wouldn't otherwise have, that I realize, wow, that's why I did it. So I want to share my gratitude to you now.
Can you give words? Like, I want to ask a question, which is just coming up for me.
Yeah.
Someone heard me say, I love you to a dear friend of mine, and it really confused them. It was a culture thing.
Okay.
That a man can say, I love you to a woman and not have an intimate thing with that woman.
Yeah. Okay.
So can you give words to how you experience the word love towards Aine?
I would say love is like in my, if I could kind of cry as I feel this, but when I say I love you, what I'm really saying is it's the love I've missed from my mother all that time. And I feel that in your eyes, I see that love reflected back to me.
Whew, beautiful.
And
how does that feel for you?
It's, as Andy had shared, we haven't really interacted all that much with each other. And so it's, and I also see what he says, that on some level we really see each other, even though he knows hardly anything about me and my life journey or anything, but I feel very seen by him through my knowing of his journey. Because on some level, I think, while very different, they're also similar on some levels. And so, yeah, I feel very seen and very known on a not fact by fact basis, but as a human being, human being bumbling along on this earth,
Wonderful.
So it's very unusual to have this kind of a relationship that is on some level very deep and intimate, and yet it's fleeting.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. And thanks for trusting us to come on the show.
Yeah, I mean, you really didn't want to be here. Let's agree on that. Like,
well, no, that's not quite right. I mean, part of me went, oh crap, what have I done? And the other part of me went, okay, I guess I've done it. Let's go for it.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I love that your show is so open and unpredictable on some levels. I mean, yeah, there is a theme. There is, the people that are on, they have certain stories and whatnot. But still, where is it gonna go? Who knows?
Exactly.
And that is, on some level, it's a little okay, and
A
on the other
wonderful
level,
chaos.
it's very honest, it's very real, it's very raw, and it's very present in the moment, and those are all good qualities. So from that level, I really do appreciate what you guys do.
Thank you. Yeah. You're 13 years old. You're
Yeah.
scraping away on a desk the word why.
Uh-huh.
What's going on in you at that point when you're scraping why?
I'm following an impulse. I'm purely following an impulse. There is no thought behind it. It's just for whatever reason that needs to appear in that, beat up, all scratched up desk. I mean, I wasn't the first one to to mutilate that thing, but it was just a pure impulse. I couldn't have then told you why I was doing it, and again, right now, it's still looking back. I mean, I can project back onto who I was back then, what was going on in my life, who I now know I am, much better so than a confused 13-year-old struggling with depression and all kinds of fun things. So yeah, it was just this really deep impulse that word wanted to appear. And what even struck me back then, being German, I wrote it in English. I didn't write it in German, which was even another layer to this. Well, why would I write it in English, right?
Yeah. When I think back at 13, I was struggling with eternal non-existence. So death was my greatest fear. The kind of the sinking of, wow, like when I'm dead, I'm gone for eternity. Like even now, if I feel back into 13, I can even feel the vibration in my body from that age and how I felt. It's that palpable. So when you're saying why, and you talk about your depression, so what are the kind of things around you at that age where you say, hey, this is what's really triggering me to ask that question, even if it doesn't have a specific answer to it?
Right. I think it was a lot of my life was about disconnect, separation from others, from some higher knowing, my higher self, whatever words you want to use around that. So it was a very disconnected, and I felt also very not seen at my true essence. And as somebody who's depressed and all these things, people couldn't see me, right? And so I was just, it was really challenging. 13, 14 was really probably one of the hardest periods in my life, just figuring out who am I, and then my interactions that all felt very unlike what we have. I mean, pretty much the opposite of that. And so just navigating, just navigating.
13 is really 8th grade. I think it's like where
seventh, eighth, yeah.
And I think it's sort of where one starts to feel like they need to form, at least for me, I remembered it was when I needed to feel like I formed an identity. Like up to 13, it was in my grade school years. For me, at least, I realized that I could comfortably fit in, and there were the birthday parties, and there was like kind of enough social gathering, which was more generic, that I didn't need to feel like I belonged to a group. But as soon as high school came, for my case, I felt like I didn't know where I belonged because I wasn't in one of the fixed groups, which you get very identified in.
Mm-hmm.
As you spoke, I kind of saw you listening to the Smiths, wearing all black clothes. Like that's the image I had of you in Germany in the 80s, whenever we're talking about here. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, honestly, I think it was very existential for me at the time, actually, and thinking back on who I was and all of that, it just seemed like part of me knew that at the root of life is a very loving, bright energy,
Mm.
and I was living the contrast of that. Being depressed, not being heard, seen, seeing all kinds of um, um, classmates and friends, struggling with their own things. I mean, it just seemed so, yeah. Why, given that really at the basis of life, there is an incredible beauty in all these things. So why are we struggling so hard? That is kind of what, since we talked, I'm, said, okay, why? What was going on? Why would I have asked that? And that's kind of where I think, not being able to articulate it at all at the time, but that's what seems to have been at the root of it, is really this just, yeah, huge contrast.
And what I found beautiful was that not that you said, I asked myself why at 13, but you said, I've always asked myself why. And what I thought was wondrous in that question is that in some weird way, the why is always there, but it evolves and changes. So how has that why changed for you through the years?
Well, it's just, I like to understand. I mean, I have a very strong intellect that just needs to understand things. And it's also been my coping mechanism through life. And so I just look at most anything and ask why, how,
Yeah.
What's going on. And in particular, because of my own, again, being depressed as a young woman, child, teenager onward into my adult life, there's always, okay, I want to understand this better. I want to understand better how our psyche works, how these wounds that we pick up, God knows when, where, why, how do they get to be what they are, and how can we change it? So, those questions they've characterized much of my adult life, really. Just trying to understand this human existence on Earth better. I mean, I've joked before that I'm on the search for the idiot's guide to leading a good human life.
I've got more questions, but I want to leave space if you got.
Yeah, as I'm hearing you speak, I was depressed as a young child, but I wasn't aware of that until years later, like late 20s, early 30s. Like, wow. And even on one of our recent shows in this last month, I discovered that I had trauma through the show, and I never really named it in that way. So for you, when did you discover or have the awareness that you were actually going through depression?
Oh, in my 30s, late 30s, because depression wasn't part of the German vocabulary when I was growing up.
No, it was just a state of being in all of Germany.
You're gonna get.
Belfast is like, I've offended each culture. I've offended each culture on this show.
I'm like very careful not to get any hate messages from people. Like, do you?
So we'll rewind.
That's hilarious.
No, we don't. This is it with staying.
Sorry.
So So it wasn't.
Yeah, it wasn't until my 30s that I realized it.
And what what precipitated that?
One second. The only reason in my life I've asked that question, the why, the three-letter word, is when I feel completely lost. When I'm comfortable, I never really look for things. But as soon as I go into a form of confusion, suffering, or I take my thoughts seriously, then the why comes. And I'm wondering, have you ever? You also said that you always need to understand things because of your high intellect, but did you also find a space in yourself? Like I, at some point, surrendered to the idea, to the concept that I don't need to understand everything, and then comes why not?
Yeah. I wrote down the same thing already some time ago. You've been asking yourself why all these years. I wonder if you ever ask yourself why not.
High five, Dad.
High five. Great minds think alike.
He did not just say that.
You know, on some level, no, I don't need to know why about everything. Honestly, I really don't. And so that's great. And isn't it fun to understand things?
Yeah.
You know, what, because once you have awareness on some level is also an understanding, right? And we're always, well, and to some extent, as I read you guys, we're searching for awareness, which really is just another word of understanding.
Mm-hmm.
And so with that level of awareness and what's going on and patterns, recognizing patterns in self and others, you know, not to generalize or diminish, but to just, again, gather a greater understanding, well, then navigation becomes a little bit easier.
Yeah. I guess the interesting thing, and this is something that I see we've discussed sometimes. I asked Bambos, what books is he reading lately? And he said, since I read your book where you said, I don't read books, I've stopped reading books. So the humor, or the thing I'm curious about, is that I often look at myself and my behavior as a reflection of an identity that I'm not always in contact with. So
Right.
if I'm listening to you and I hear, I'm asking myself why, and I'm going and getting knowledge and information, self-awareness, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then the question I'm really curious about is, at what point do we then say, oh, actually, that is itself a coping mechanism? Like
Of course it is.
Yeah, sure. But how has that journey then been for you in that regard?
Well, you can get lost in your mind spinning around in circles up there trying to find answers and whatnot. And that obviously is not productive. So there is a level of embodiment, you know, being physically fully present in your body that calms that mind down. And then asking from there doesn't spin you in a circle anymore. It's expanding. It's expanding your awareness. It's expanding you in this physical realm. And so, you know, it may have started out as a search for, okay, I've been depressed, and, you know, this, that, the other is in my background. Okay, so why do I heal? How do I achieve a life that feels more fulfilling, feels more joy-filled? Yeah, it may start out there, but then as you integrate and settle in further into who you are, then it's fun, right?
Yeah.
I still get the occasional 2x4 in the face by the universe, right? And, you know, it hurts and it sucks, and you go, dang it, another one? Why? But at some level, they just become, oh, now I learned this. Isn't that great? You know, it doesn't have to be heavy anymore. I guess that's what I'm saying. Then it just becomes part of, this is what life on Earth is about. And why not understand it better rather than using it as something that is of its own purpose, you know?
It's like a distinction where the word and the intention of the word changes. So when you were
Mm-hmm.
13, I heard you say, why? Like almost like, why me? You know, the Jesus Christ superstar, forsaken. And then,
Right.
the Bambos loves my Jesus Christ superstar references. And then the other why is the wondrous why. Like, why? And I'm hearing that wondrous why is more joy filled and actually is not a reaction to a negative. It's actually a
No.
very positive, welcoming, almost a joyous invitation to understand, which feels very different.
Right. And connecting deeper into, life, connecting deeper into life
Yeah. Beautiful.
in all its dimensions, really.
We could write a book with all the quotes from guests.
Yeah, we could.
Andy is. I also got into notes, so then I stay also more present. He's always writing notes, and I'm seeing now. Oh, yeah, this is really valuable because it enables me to be with you fully. And
Hmm.
as you were speaking, I had a moment of zoning out when I do a lot of cold exposure, which means I sit in an ice bath, and sometimes I'll get the question why, but I noticed that when I've asked the question, why am I here this moment, I go into, I take a deep breath in because I need to create the heat in my body, and then it becomes like a meditation, and then what Andy would might call channeling, like allow the guidance to be there,
Right.
and sometimes nothing comes, and it's only like half a year later that there's discovery or something speaks to me.
Right.
But I in my own body, if I really stick to the why and I try to hold on to it, I might even start panicking. I've seen in the past, so I kind of learned to ask it and then let go.
Right. Well, there is a different couple of different ways of listening. Even, when you just listen to my voice, you can reach out towards my voice, leaning forward to try and grasp it, find it, hear it, capture the words that are coming, or
Yeah.
you can sit back and be, energetically be really low in your body towards in your pelvis. And then the words just come in and they land on you. So you're more of receiving. So there
Mm.
is, there's a very, very different way of how we can interact with what is around us. So it's the same with the why. I can go out there searching, grasping at things, trying to find them and pull them close to me so that I can feel better, or I can just again let life come to me and then experience from there
Mm.
and understand from there, which feels a whole lot better, really.
It sounds like a more embodied place. When you
Exactly.
when you first explained it, I thought you were really analyzing it. But what I hear now is that you're really letting the words land in the body and see how it feels. So it's very sensual,
It's
embodied.
embodied
Mm.
asking at this point. When I was 13, I was lost. No two ways about it. And somewhere in between, I was definitely searching, grasping for things, um, not being very present in my body.
Mm.
So yeah.
The in January I jumped on the scale and I was 97 kilos. And I looked down at that
I
scale
love this story, by the way.
and I said, what the fuck?
I can't tie my shoelaces
I can't
anymore.
tie my shoe. Like I gotta suck in and like hold my breath to tie my shoelaces, like it was not good.
It was really bad. I mean, he's like, I'm married now. I don't care.
Yeah. I mean, what am I working for? It's not like I'm going to get any more of it if I actually am more fit, that kind of thing.
Actually, you might just.
Yeah, it's not true. But the thing was that at the same time, I was saying, oh, I want to write the third book. So I set aside time. I took a vacation. I said, oh, great time to start writing. So now, because I had the idea that I should write a book, have the time, why not do it? I get there for the 2 months that I'm off and I can't write a damn thing. Like the idea that I was going to do it took away all the joy. It made it a task. All of a sudden the flow was gone. It was no one above was inviting me to write a book. No one called me to do it. I just thought, oh, this would be good to do. So, and then and I didn't blame, I don't have a shaming thing. So I just don't write the book. It's like, okay, I'm not called to do this, so I don't do it. So 2 weeks ago, the last 2 months, I just took care of my body. Nothing, every day, 20 kilometers walking. I'm fasting now for 18 hours a day and eating 6 hours, and my weight's decreasing. And all of a sudden, my mind is sharper. I feel more connected to my body. And all of a sudden, I was sleeping in the bed one morning without any real focus. And then I said, oh, a cookbook for communications. I can do that. All the ingredients are so clear in my own head. Let me just write it. And so then I start to write it. And then what happens is I'm trying to force the cookbook analogies into my writing. And then I'm like, I'm not a fucking cook. I can't do this. So, which was just fine because I kept writing. So the humor was, if I tried to keep doing the metaphorical world of cooking and communications, I would have gotten stuck and I would have stopped it. But so now I'm into 16 chapters of this book, and the book is just writing itself. I don't have a structure. I don't have an outline. I know intuitively the next chapter that has to be written based on what I just wrote. And the humor is like, all I'm doing is taking care of my body. And I'm saying, hey, I'm going to surrender to whatever's asking me to write next. And that's just been a loving, joyous, fun, meditative, no work process. But it took me 2 years since I saw you last writing the last book for that moment to come again.
Right.
Yeah. So the thing that I guess was the bigger item for me was that it's almost going back to Buddhism, because so many things do go back to it's the attachment to the idea and the thing we think we should or need to be doing that stops us from just allowing us to be present with whatever is.
Yeah, and I guess my question often is then, we have certain desires, we have certain needs and whatnot, and so, just sitting around, is anything ever gonna get done? Yeah. Is anything ever gonna appear? So at some level, you do need to sit down to actually write.
Yeah.
And you can't come at it from a place of resistance or super headiness. It needs to be able to flow through, but at the same time, that's sometimes a fine line where I'm kind of going back and forth. How much can I act and make it happen, or act myself into alignment with writing a book, doing whatever? Or how much do I just need to be present in the moment and just listening?
Yeah, to some degree, there's clearly some discipline also.
Exactly.
It's funny, in this situation, my discipline feels like it's more the walking than the writing, which is kind of humorous.
The way I experience your walking, because he walked a lot, and there was no book, there was no inspiration, but through the walking, because he wasn't home getting lost in the
Netflix,
like the mind-numbing things, he creates spaciousness in him to allow something to channel through him. And of course, through the walking, you did lose quite a lot of weight. And we joked yesterday, because we walked together, and he's like, these pants in 2 weeks, I'm not going to be able to wear them anymore because they're going to be too big for me.
And I think getting back to the comment of the show, the why, I don't know if I ever really asked myself why, as opposed to why not. There's more of a why not in my life than a why.
Yeah, you're a little bit more devious than I am, I think.
Well, that's the German blood. Let's be honest about this. Come on, the Americans can talk about anything and not know anything about it. The Germans will need to have perfection before they even open their mouths, right?
Yes. We
I
can do
love
an
your
entire show
stereotyping.
on German mentality and German
No, we're
core
not.
German wounds and all of
Yeah.
those things. Yeah, we could do a long show on Germans.
We could do a whole show on that. Maybe we should, Bambos.
I don't think we should.
I lived in Austria for, I don't know, a lot of years.
And Austria and Germany are
Right.
the same.
There's a close connection, but yeah, the Germans and the Austrians, obviously they share a language, but yeah. There's not a lot of love. There's not a lot of, I haven't lived in a lot of countries where there's books that are written about love. And the Dutch don't really have love novels, and I don't necessarily remember many coming out of the German countries either. More intensity.
Yeah, it's not a very sensual.
Why did you leave Germany?
I felt stuck in Germany. And that was in the late 80s. I somehow wanted to go abroad for a little bit just to expand my horizons a little. And it was really challenging because, you can go and volunteer anywhere you want, but financially that wasn't an option for me. And I just went in circles trying to find something that, was pre-internet. So it was really challenging. And then it's one of those stories. I was working with a young woman, and she had somehow made contact with the Forest Service research station in Flagstaff, Arizona, which was the first Forest Service research station ever founded, and it's still in existence. And she was going to go over there as a volunteer, trainee kind of person. And then last minute, she decided, no, she didn't want to do that anymore. She wanted to be a Waldorf school teacher. And I just said, I'll do it. And I didn't even know where Arizona was. I mean, I had my old 4th grade school atlas that they gave us. We could keep them. I could look up, and Arizona was so small that there were only 3 dots on it: Flagstaff, Phoenix, and Tucson.
Yeah.
And it was mostly brown, which meant mountains, higher elevation. I'm going, okay, good. I like mountains.
And red, because it's very conservative, of course.
Well, back then it wasn't quite as conservative as it has turned into. But, and so I just went. I found a way to get a visa through an exchange program and went. And famous last words, here I am, still in the US.
And how many years has that been that you've been there?
31 years.
31 years.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
Yeah.
How would you say the US has changed you?
It's less rigid than Germany. German is it feels, and it's less crowded. That's the other, when I look over this way, I'm looking out the window, I'm seeing the Front Range in Colorado, the mountains right at the very edge of the Rocky Mountains. And that to me is very, very essential to my well-being, to have that kind of spaciousness available to me. And there's places in Germany where you can get it, but overall it's more rigid, it's more crowded.
But I was meaning more from your mental state. How do you feel like you've shifted as a person because of having lived in the US?
It's not only for the US though, it's also the environment that you're in.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I evolved as a human being, I don't know how I would have evolved as a human being in Germany, given that I didn't evolve as a human being in Germany.
Mm.
So it's hard to tell. I think on some level there is more alternative modes of looking at things here in this country. Not that they don't exist in Germany. I mean, so it's not like you can't access it, but you can access it easier here. There's a little bit more freedom in creating your own thing rather than having to have this certificate and whatnot that allows you to go this far, but by golly, you can't go any further because you don't have the sheet of paper that proves that you could go further.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. So I think it was beneficial to me to live in a culture that is less rigid in those ways, for me to be able to open up and shed those things that held me in depression and other fun little things. So in that regard, I think the spaciousness that I feel in the land also exists, in culture to some extent.
Yeah, I feel very much that way. In a culture, I immediately see a shift in how I experience myself in different cultures. So when I go back to the US, I have a dual relationship with it. I feel far more spacious when it comes to opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like I can dream. Everything is sort of in like the millions of dollars thinking. And then when I'm in the Netherlands, it's kind of like the tens of thousands or the thousands of dollar ranges. There's like a dreaminess that happens in the US that is very limited in my experience more in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, I see so much more identification in the US in terms of liberal or conservative and this sort of very, very parsing out of I'm good, you're bad. And that's really constricting in me. So it's a very funny thing. There's this really strange dynamic. On one end, I feel incredible opportunity and I feel enriched. And on the other hand, I feel this intense undercurrent of like intensity that feels so unnecessary.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow, nice,
Yeah.
nicely put.
Yeah.
I've got some just questions for myself if you don't have anything.
I don't. I'm just being very.
You you're a critical thinker and you like to ask why. Now,
Mm-hmm.
it might sound weird to say this to you, but I'm going to say it. Like I'm surprised that you would have enjoyed either of my books
Really?
because yeah, because in a lot of ways I don't really answer questions in the book. I'm more vulnerable and let everyone come to their own conclusions. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious what in the books, what drew you to it at all, and what did you, if anything, get from them?
Well, I guess that's the oxymoron of me is that what I realized about myself is I have this brain that is very capable. And so it was my survival mechanism, but it's not my core of who I am. So it's kind of it was even more so in the past. I mean, people would think of me as super logical. I'm not super logical. I'm totally nonlinear. I mean, I can do logical really well thanks to my brain, but I'm totally nonlinear. I'm actually very sensitive, feely kind of person. And so it's what you see in front of you is a persona that has learned to through the question of why and studying and observing and whatnot, has a decent knowledge base around why. And at the same time, there is underneath is more of an innocent, nature connected, sensitive being that very much so feels into the human plight because I've lived through it, my own version of it. So reading your story, especially the first book, was just, I lived through all these chapters with you, you know, and I saw myself actually in many of these chapters because, you know, on some level you were on your own journey of why that got spurred by your mother's death. And so I saw a lot of parallels. And so for me, just walking through your life journey, having mine in not in mind, but in you know in the background, it was I just saw a lot of parallels really on many levels, and I couldn't put it down, that book. I mean, when you left it there at the hot springs, I just mine and I started
Did you leave it on
reading.
purpose?
Yeah. That's beautiful. Thank you. That's really wonderful to hear.
Can we do a little experiment?
Sure.
With the three of us, not with you, but just with the three of us. Like, what came up for me as I heard you speak, because we're talking about the why a lot. I was tuning into sharing some silence. Just take a moment, and also the viewers, just take a moment to go into a 1 minute meditation and just breathe and tune into the why, just tuning into it as a vibration. And whenever one of the three of us feels called for, or one of our guests, viewers can comment, see what comes up for you. And maybe nothing, but
I'm going to share what came up for me as I closed my eyes. I mean, my current why is that loving life force wants to be expressed.
I immediately, as soon as I spoke what I spoke, the suggestion, I was tuning into why would I make that suggestion, and it was really impulsive. Completely impulsive, and also a naughty part of me wanting to be a bit more crazy on the show.
Are you complete? So I loved it because I just said, let's see what comes up. And I said, why? And then I kept seeing words come after the why. Why not? Why now? Like I could feel. And then each time I heard the second word, I felt my mind move away from just being present. And it was interesting because as soon as I added the second word, I kept feeling, oh, I'm disconnected. Oh, why now? I'm disconnected. I'm thinking, why? And then I heard, and I just said, because. And then I just felt this deep peace fall over me, like, oh, because. And then it was really a beautiful, it felt like a deep meditation, actually. I was like, oh, because. And that I saw each time I needed to answer anything, it took me away from myself. So by allowing it just to be was just a really a sweet journey.
Nice.
Yeah.
Shall we play another game?
Sure.
Shall we play another game?
Okay, Naughty, you. What do you want to play?
Exactly. And this time it better be good.
What comes up for me is we just say the word why out loud and tuning into different intensities and intentions with it. So why? 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 And we could just do it together at the same time even, and just tuning into which why has a impact without needing to label it good or bad. So just playing with the word why. It's a good game.
I like that game. I don't know if the three of us doing it together is going to be okay, but we can try it.
Why?
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 Why? Why? Why? Why?
So which one feels best?
Actually, I didn't like it in the end.
Oh, I fucking love it. The one that feels best for me is the yelling out why.
Oh wow.
And I'll do it sometimes with Ronnie because we love and play. I'll just get angry for no apparent reason, just to allow the fun of being angry, because there's no real reason to be angry. So we have to make up some concocted thing. But what I feel is that there's an energy there that gets released in the why.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why? And there's no need to attach anything further to it, but it's like a release of my body that's holding on to whatever the things that came up in the day without needing to solve it or fix it or anything. So yeah, that's the why that resonates the most. And I use it without necessarily saying why, in different shapes and forms.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like me entering the building, and then he's like, Bambos is here, let's pretend that we're arguing. And then he starts shouting, why? And I go downstairs, I'm like, what's up, man?
I'll just start screaming as if I'm yelling at Ronnie, and like Bambos thinks he's come in the middle of a fight.
Which I never buy, by the way.
He
So.
never buys it, which kind of sucks, you know.
Well, it's actually kind of good.
But you know what would be really fun is if one time it really was happening, and then he comes down and says, "Oh, you guys are joking again." Oh.
But yeah, I think for me, it's the energy of the why definitely has shifted through my life. You know, it's no longer a painful why question. You know, for you, the painful why feels good because you're playing with it. It's not because there's true, you know, I mean, yeah, there's some energy from random things, but it's not a existential, you know, deep-seated pain behind it. So it's playing around.
It's not a Jesus Christ Superstar why.
Right. Yeah. It's a goofing around.
Yeah.
Playing with different energies. Yeah. Kind of why. Yeah.
I've got another question for you, if I may, So you've been stalking Bambos on the
Right.
and it's fucking great group. So for those of you who haven't already been there, we've got a special group on Facebook called hashtag and it's fucking great. It's a kind of call it a derivative that came from the Wounded Healer book, which is a simple practice where one says the thing they're struggling with most and follows it with hashtag and it's fucking great.
I also just want to say, when I'm lifting these books up, I'm I'm not just doing it to support Andy. I've read both books 15 times each, and I have the audio book. It's been for me every time new things come up. But anyway,
And I want to recognize something to you, Bambos. I always thought it was a bit pathetic and dodgy that you raised the books. But last week, someone told me because Bambos raises those books up so many times, I bought a copy. So at that point, I rethought everything of like, wow, it sort of does work. But that wasn't the point of where I was going with this. So in that group on Facebook, the people sharing the thing and the whole intention of the group, no one's there to heal one another. No one's there to try to fix. No one's there to, it's one person who was sort of struggling with the group and they wrote some things that they weren't happy with how the group was working. They said, at the end, they said, what you're really offering is silent empathy.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, oh, interesting. Yeah, I can call it silent empathy.
yeah.
And what I was wondering, and this is kind of a funny twist to get to the question I really have, is in seeing Bambos, we've often said, what is the perception of Bambos from those who don't know him but see his posts? Because Bambos is the most vulnerable, shares the deepest, the things that people might think but never feel that comfortable putting him out there. He goes like the extra mile to say, I'm not going to let anything not be said. So what are your feelings or impressions of him just from seeing that and seeing some of our shows?
Oh boy. He takes, or apologies, Bambos, because I'm now projecting all kinds of crap onto you. But what I see and feel is that you take things super seriously and you will go to the nth degree, and sometimes it almost seems like self-flagellation, like, don't have to quite go that last step to yeah, that's, again, apologies, and you put me on the spot here.
No, absolutely not forgiving you.
I actually, as you say it, I would say that is probably a great impression, like an honest impression that I think you go so far into where other people would be so uncomfortable that to some degree it would almost be like, wow, why would he even go that far? As if you're almost doing it to
Why not?
Exactly. You would say, why not? Exactly. But from the outside looking in, they're like, wow, he's going even further than I think one. And that's where the judgment comes in.
Yeah.
Then is necessary, right? Because that's the word we would use implicitly.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. So let me tune into that. It liberates me. Like, I grew up where I didn't have a voice and everything was hidden and backstabbing and talking behind people's backs, never being authentic, never sharing what's in people's minds. And I spent a lot of my life as a child from the age of 8 creating stories in order to get love. And when I catch this version of me, the man that I am, wanting to hide in the shadows parts of myself, those are the moments where I'll be like, no, this is me sharing my humanity, and I will not be silenced. I'm not gonna walk this earth anymore suppressing. And even if I am scared or ashamed, it's okay, and I'm still gonna share it because I want to be the example of what I want to see more in the world. Us celebrating the things that we don't celebrate.
Mm-hmm.
And I can cry right now because I feel passionate about that. That I even called my photography business Unmasked Photography, where I
Mm,
invite people. You don't have to lose the weight. You don't have to wait until you are a better version of yourself. Why not now?
mm,
Yeah,
So,
I would
so,
agree with those.
so even when I think I shared, I ejaculated in my sleep, I felt ashamed, and I went into that rant. When I shared it, I no longer felt anything about it, but I knew I was being of service of people who maybe have similar experiences and don't talk. And
mm.
I can assure you, my inbox surprisingly w- was full of messages of people like sharing the things that they are, and I'm like, wow, put it in the comments, like, no way.
Yeah. I'm happy you said it because I wouldn't have felt comfortable having said it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, the one thing I think you're pointing at, which I also see in life, is that we have on this show a lot of people who came out of the religion, Mormon Church, Catholic Church, like the stronger religions. And what I've seen when there's been so much that has been suppressed in them, and for so many years, and a lot of times when it comes out as a very, very reactive too. Like I am going to be more of that than I could ever imagine. Like I have a lot of friends that are kind of, Mormon and Catholic, very strict. And then they tell me that they're going to swinger clubs now. And I'm like, how did you go from that to that? Like, what is that? Like that journey seems so far for me. But when you've suppressed it, it's almost like that's the shape and form it comes out initially. And
Right.
that when you point at that, I kind of sense that with you as you told your story. There's a degree to which it's like, you know what? I've held this in for this many years. Now I get to be free of it. And there's
Yeah.
a beauty in that. And I think that from the outside perspective, people look at it and say, oh, wow, he's really going further than I would go, because I think I could say the same thing, feel connected, but not say, in the strong terms or however you phrase it, right? Because you're phrasing things very, very, very
Raw.
strong,
Yeah,
raw.
it's very raw.
Hmm.
So yeah,
And that's also part, like, as I'm writing, I'll feel, ooh, this is edgy. Okay, write it.
and that's what we're talking about. Yeah, thank you, Anya. That was I put you both on the spot right there, but I actually I was an honest question because Bambos and I have discussed this quite a bit through
No, he
the time.
discussed, I listen.
Right.
Nice. Bambos, do you realize you didn't need to state it that way? Bambos, you could have just said, I had a sexual experience in bed. You didn't need to say, I had a premature ejaculation all over the sheets. I cleaned the yeah.
It wasn't a premature.
No, I know. Whatever. I don't even know how to phrase these things anymore.
I was gonna say to you today, Andy, do you know what? I've been sharing the wonderful Chaos link with people that I'm just getting to know.
So, be cautious with your words.
And I feel really comfortable. I have to say.
Oh, really?
Well, I feel comfortable, but right now I don't feel comfortable.
We've always said, I've got it easy because I've got Ronnie downstairs. And although she doesn't really like the things I talk about, she doesn't watch the show. She says, do what you want to do on your time. Don't include me.
As his wife, and she's quite I would say, celebrity in the finance world. Like, she's well known. So in a way, her husband doing this show and sometimes expressing things might make his wife uncomfortable.
Yeah. But
he's married.
But I'm getting laid. I don't need to worry. Hey, maybe someone
and
that might be interested.
He's calling me edgy. Listen to that.
Maybe. No, but this is where it gets edgy because I've got it's really easy to gamble when you got $1 million in the bank, Bambos. But you're still gambling with the women who don't know you yet, and they're watching these shows. So, there is a different degree of risk you're taking. That's what I'm showing appreciation and acknowledgement of that. That was it.
Yeah, and I guess to those women who
who may still be interested in this.
Well, they now know that he is perhaps pushing the overexpression a little bit, so that in
No,
the
but-
end
but
it
think
evens
about-
out.
In the end, it evens out.
But
Yeah.
think about it. If anyone judges and doesn't have a genuine question to explore why I do the things I do, then in a way, do I want that person in my life? Because this is the way I live. This is not a show.
Yeah.
It's not an on and off switch. It is a lifestyle.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they can't handle the certain intensity that you bring
Yeah.
forth, then they're
Yeah,
probably
it's-
not a good match.
No. Self-selected out.
It's a flavor.
Yeah.
Right, right.
And there's a lot of women that do dig that thing. That thing.
Okay, Andy.
But
Like, I love you.
shut up.
Shut up.
I love it. It's the first time on the show I think I've got to shut up. That's
yesterday
great.
I hit you.
You gave
but-
me, you know what I'm going to start giving him? I'm going to give him like yellow or green cards and red cards, like we're in a soccer match. Andy, that's your
Right.
first one. Second one, I'm tossing you out of the game. Thank you
so
for
much.
being with us. It was fun to let you observe the absurdity of us at the end. That was really nice.
Oh, thank you guys.
Yeah, and thank you for being you. I mean, the wonder of our relationship is, as you said, we on some levels know each other so little, and on other levels we are bonded, and that's just beautiful. Yeah,
Yeah, it's a shared path, I think.
Yeah.
Again, your story different from mine, but it still is a very shared path.
yeah. Love you.
Love you guys too.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. And we didn't ask you why you changed your name, but we'll get into that in the next show.
Okay.
We'll
Bring me
call
back
it
on for that episode.
why I changed my name.
Bye. I want that show. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, Bambos.
Friday, Andy.
Tomorrow's Friday. I'm traveling to Scheveningen tomorrow to do an interview for the 7-day walk I took across the west coast of the Netherlands.
Nice. Are you making it on time back?
Yeah, I'll make it on time back. I made sure I got there early enough so that I could get back for our show. But I'm gonna do I'm writing an article for the Dutch magazine, and then I'll be on the radio show to discuss what I learned along the way. All right. I need to bring my notes because I think I forgot about a lot of the stuff that I actually did. Seems like ages ago. And yeah, so we have tomorrow. Our show tomorrow. What?
Oh yeah, I forgot what tomorrow is. Tomorrow we have.
Oh, tomorrow we have Raised in a Doomsday Cult, right? With Mean. I believe that's the pronunciation. So we're raised in a doomsday cult, and she basically like left the cult, and she discusses her journey in and out and what happened. Which seems pretty wild. I mean, think about that. Raised in a doomsday cult. Oof. That's insanity.
Are you guys sold?
Yeah. That's it.
We've had intense subjects again this week.
Yeah, we've had some wild stuff. It's been the viewership has been high. I mean, our shows this last week really, on average, they're probably in that 300-400 viewers on the videos only in the first day or two. So it's been a really a week of people really getting into the stuff we produced this week. So that was really nice to see as well. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to the Monday show.
Yeah. Monday's a good show.
Monday's a good show, guys. If you're getting stuck in shoulds and shouldn'ts.
Shouldn'ts. Why?
What's it?
I know, or maybe, or possibly, or all of the words that we hedge so that we don't need to be decisive in our lives. It's going to be a curious topic to dig into. And we're going to be doing that.
And so much more. Store
Because-
one. Wonderful.
You thought that I could stop you before
Wonderful
you did it.
chaos.
You thought I could stop you before you did. No, I stopped.